The last restaurant, what I built, what she took, and what I built next. My phone buzzed at 9:47 on a Tuesday night while I was breaking down the line. I need space. Don't call me. That was it. No period at the end. Like she couldn't be bothered to finish the sentence, I set the phone face down on the stainless steel and kept scrubbing the grill. Part 1, the text. The grill wasn't clean yet. I had 2 sheet pans in the sink, a walk-in that needed restocking before 6 in the morning, and a stock pot on the back burner that I'd started reducing at 7 and wasn't going to be right until at least 11. I wasn't going to stop for a text, but I read it again, and then a third time. 7 years. A mortgage we were 4 payments behind on because we'd sunk the equity into the restaurant's 3rd year renovation. 2 cats she picked out and I fed every morning because she was usually gone before the light changed. 7 years, and she sent it at 9:47 on a Tuesday, like she was calling in sick to a job she'd already decided to quit. I set the phone on the pass and thought about calling. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds, which is how long it takes for a pan of stock to reduce by a measurable amount if the heat is right. Then I opened my email. There was a message in my drafts folder, one I'd written and almost sent 3 times since September. A contract offer from the Garrison Hotel Group. New concept, new location, flagship property in the Gulch neighborhood. Executive chef title, real budget, creative control. My name on the menu, my sourcing relationships, my vision. I'd held it in drafts because of Vera, because she always said we were close to something real at Cassidy's, because she said the next season would be different, because she said just wait, and I had believed her each time because the believing was easier than the alternative. I stopped waiting. I hit send at 9:53, then I picked up my phone, went back to her message, and typed 8 words. Already where you couldn't follow? Take care. I finished the stock reduction. I wrapped the sheet pans. I restocked the walk-in with the produce delivery that had arrived at 3 that afternoon and that I'd set aside until close. I locked up at 11:40, drove home on the empty streets of East Nashville, and sat in the car in the driveway for about 4 minutes, listening to the engine tick. At 10:08, her name had lit up my screen. Wait, what does that mean? I put the phone in the glove compartment and went inside. I need to back up. Part 2, Cassidy's. 6 months before that text, Cassidy's was the kind of place that got written about in the kind of publications that don't write about places that don't deserve it. 42 seats, open kitchen, my food, my menu, my sourcing relationships with 4 farms in a 60-mile radius that I'd built over 3 years of early Saturday morning market conversations and farm visits, and the kind of trust that comes from never once misrepresenting what you're going to do with someone's product. The chef's counter was 8 seats and had a 3-month wait. The duck press I'd sourced from a restaurant closing in Lyon had become something people came back for specifically. I built that kitchen from nothing, or from less than nothing, from a lease that everyone in the industry said was too expensive for the neighborhood from equipment that was used, and in one case actively hostile from a crew that was assembled over 18 months through the specific combination of interviews and trial shifts, and the kind of reputation that gets built one service at a time. Vera managed the front. That was the arrangement we had arrived at in year 2 after the year 1 arrangement in which she helped in the evenings after her day job and hotel events. Management proved insufficient for what the restaurant had become. She quit her day job, we restructured our finances, and she became the general manager. She was good at it. She had the specific quality of warmth that makes a dining room feel like a place someone chose rather than a place they ended up, and she had the operational intelligence to back the warmth with systems. It worked. For a while, it actually worked in the specific way that things work when 2 people who are genuinely good at different things point those abilities at the same project. But I noticed things. Small things at first. Part 3, Callum Shore. Callum Shore owns 7 food and beverage operations across Nashville, 2 in Memphis, and had just announced a boutique hotel project in the Gulch that would include what the press release called a signature dining destination, with an elevated interpretation of Southern food traditions. He came into Cassidy's for the first time in May. I remember the reservation. His assistant called, mentioned the name, and our front of house manager, Priya, asked me if I knew who he was. I said yes and told her to give him the chef's counter. He came back in June, July. By August, he was coming 3 times a month, always requesting the same foretop near the pass where he could see the kitchen. He drank whatever I sent out from the cellar, which told me something. He was a person who preferred to receive rather than select, which in a restaurant context either means supreme confidence or a testing posture. With Callum Shore, it was both. Vera seated him personally. Every time I told myself this was professional, you take care of significant guests, you make them feel like the room was arranged for them. She had always been good at that calibration. But I noticed the specific quality of her attention when he was in the room. The posture change, the way she moved when she was aware of being watched and had decided she didn't mind. The conversations that were slightly too long for tableside hospitality, not long enough to call a meeting. There was an evening in August when I came out of the kitchen to address a table complaint, a dish that had arrived cooler than it should have because the runner had stopped to answer a question, and I saw her at Callum's table, not standing, sitting across from him, both hands around a glass of wine. I stood in the kitchen doorway for 5 seconds. She looked up and saw me. Something moved across her face that I have thought about many times since, and I want to describe it correctly. It was not guilt. It was calculation. It was the face of someone who had been managing the distance between two things and was now doing real-time geometry on the fact that the things were in the same room. She stood up, walked toward me, said it was about a private event he was interested in booking, full buyout, multiple evenings. You were drinking wine. It's hospitality. It's one glass. I went back to the kitchen and fired the next ticket. That was the first mistake. Not confronting it, not asking the question I actually wanted to ask, not saying what I was actually thinking. Instead, I went back to the line and cooked the best service I had cooked in 3 weeks. Because when I don't know what else to do, I cook, and the cooking is always honest, even when nothing else is. Part 4, what I started noticing. In September, the City magazine ran a feature on Nashville's emerging restaurant culture. Cassidy's was mentioned prominently. They named the Duck Press and called the chef's counter one of the most consequential dining experiences in the city. They quoted me. They used a photograph of the kitchen. I printed the article and put it on the pass. Vera saw it that evening, said, "That's great, babe," and went back to her phone. I told myself she was managing logistics for the upcoming season. I told myself the private event conversations with Callum were exactly what they appeared to be. I gave her the benefit of every doubt I had, which was considerable because I had spent 7 years building something with her, and the cost of not believing in it anymore was higher than I wanted to price. Meanwhile, Callum was coming in twice a week now. I started paying attention to the floor in ways I hadn't before, not because I had decided to investigate anything, but because the kitchen has windows, and I have always paid attention to the room the way a surgeon pays attention to the whole patient rather than just the procedure. Here is what I noticed assembled over about 6 weeks. Vera's phone habits changed. The specific angle of the screen when she read something. The movement toward the back office to take calls that previously she would have taken at the host stand. The lock screen appearing before she put the phone away rather than the natural fade out of a phone going to sleep on its own. I know these things because I have always been observant and because the kitchen develops your peripheral attention in ways that people who have never cooked professionally don't fully understand. You track 12 things simultaneously for 4 hours. You learn to notice without appearing to notice. This is the skill of the line, and it transferred. In October, Callum organized a buyout event. 2 evenings Friday and Saturday, 36 guests open bar custom menu. He and Vera had planned the menu together. I found this out from Marcus, my sous chef, who mentioned it while we were breaking down Saturday night, not as a revelation, as a casual assumption that I already knew. Your wife put a lot of work into this menu with him? Marcus said. She was in Tuesday until past midnight. I'd been home Tuesday night. She'd said she was doing end-of-month numbers. I didn't say anything to Marcus. I kept rapping. But I did the math on the drive home. 3 planning sessions that I knew of, at least one past midnight, a menu for my kitchen, developed without me by the woman who ran my front of house and the man who was at my chef's counter 3 times a week. And she had come home at 12:51 that Tuesday. I remembered because I'd heard the door. I said, "How'd the numbers look when she came in?" She said, "Better than last month." I said, "Good." I don't know why I kept saying okay and good when I meant neither. Part 5, the private event. The event itself was exceptional. Callum's guests were well-chosen food people, not just wealthy people, which is a meaningful distinction, and the food was the best we had sent out at Cassidy's in 6 months. I was cooking with something to prove which I hadn't articulated to myself, but which the plates communicated regardless. Callum came into the kitchen at the end of the second night. He moved through the space with the ease of someone who understood kitchens, which I noted. He shook my hand and told me the food had been remarkable. He said, "You've built something real here, something that could go further." He said, "Further, not more." Further implies direction. I noticed the word. Then he said, "Vera has a natural sense for what guests need. You two make a strong team." He walked back to the floor. I watched him go. Vera was at his table with champagne. She smiled at something he said before she looked up to see if I was watching. She wasn't checking. That was the sentence I came back to that night and the night after and the week after that. Not the smile, not the champagne, the fact that checking didn't occur to her. That the monitoring of whether I was watching had ceased to be something she did. That's when I opened the Garrison email for the second time. I read it all the way through. Garrison Hotel Group Gulch, flagship, executive chef, opening in 18 months, competitive package, creative autonomy, full kitchen team selection. They had reached out to me specifically. They had eaten at Cassidy's twice. They knew what my food was. I closed the email. I didn't send anything. But I started paying attention differently. Part 6, how I found out. I want to be honest about this part because I think honesty is the only version worth telling, even when the honest version is less dramatic than what people might expect. I didn't hire anyone. I didn't go through her phone. I didn't set a trap or arrange a confrontation. I stayed late on a Thursday in November, not by much, about 45 minutes past my usual close down. The reservations had run long and I wanted to debrief with Marcus about a dish that hadn't been working. We talked for 20 minutes in the kitchen after the crew left, and then Marcus said goodnight. And I was alone in the restaurant doing the thing I sometimes do at the end of a difficult service, which is stand at the pass in the dark and think. Vera had said she was going home early. Her car was gone when I checked the lot at 9:30. At 10:40, the front door of the restaurant opened. It was Vera and Callum Shore. They were talking with the ease of people who were comfortable with each other in a space one of them owned. They had not come in through the back. They came through the front door of my restaurant, my kitchen, the thing I had built for 7 years, and they were talking with the ease of people who were comfortable with each other in a space they thought was empty. They didn't see me in the dark kitchen. I watched them for about 10 seconds, long enough to understand that what I had been giving the benefit of the doubt for 6 months was not something that deserved the benefit of the doubt. Long enough to understand that the geometry Vera had been managing in August, the real-time calculation when she saw me in the kitchen doorway had continued to be managed carefully in the months since. I went out the back. I drove to a gas station 3 blocks away. I sat in the car. I called my sister Jess from the gas station parking lot and talked to her for 20 minutes without saying specifically what I'd seen, just that I needed someone to talk to. She talked to me. That was enough. Then I drove home, went to bed, and did not say anything to Vera when she came in at 12:30. The next morning I called an attorney. Part 7, the decision. The attorney's name was Patricia Hollins. She had an office on 12th Avenue and the specific, unhurried quality of someone who has heard all of the urgent versions of all of the stories and has learned to respond to the underlying structure rather than the emotional surface. I told her what I knew and what I had. She asked practical questions. She told me what filing would require and what the timeline would look like and what I should and should not do before and after. She said to keep records of my professional contributions to the restaurant. She said to be careful about communication. She said to call her before I did anything. I called her before I did anything. What I did in the 2 weeks between the kitchen and the filing was the following. I wrote down every sourcing relationship I had, every supplier contract, every recipe development note with dates, every email from the farms and from the magazine and from the event clients. I assembled documentation that represented 7 years of creative and professional contribution to Cassidy's, with my name on it, because my name was always on it. The restaurant's reputation in the press and the industry was built on the kitchen. Every write-up mentioned the food. My name appeared in 6 of the 7 substantial pieces of press Cassidy's had received. Vera appeared in 1 in a photo caption. This was not a strategy. This was the record of what had actually happened. I filed the 2nd week of November. Vera received the papers on a Thursday. She called that evening. I didn't answer. She texted. I didn't respond. I was at the Garrison Hotel Group's soon-to-be flagship property in the Gulch, walking the kitchen space with their project director, discussing hood placement and counter heights and the specific measurements that would determine how many people I could put on the line and how the flow would work from prep to pass. I hit send on the Garrison contract at 11 that night. I had a kitchen. Part 8, what Vera contested. Vera's attorney filed a response 2 weeks after my initial papers. She was contesting the asset division. Specifically, she was claiming a portion of Cassidy's goodwill value, the worth of the restaurant's reputation, in the market, on the grounds that the reputation had been built during the marriage and therefore constituted marital property. I called Patricia from the parking lot of the Garrison space, and she told me what she told me, which was that this was a recognizable argument and that we would counter it and that I should stay calm and not do anything reactive. I wasn't reactive. I was paying attention. Because here was the thing about Cassidy's reputation. It was built on the food. Every piece of significant press mentioned the kitchen. Every industry conversation was about the menu, the sourcing, the technique. The chef's counter had a 3-month wait because of what came out of it, not because of the floor management, which was good, but not singular. I had documentation going back to the restaurant's first week, supplier contracts in my name, recipe development files with timestamps, emails from the farms addressing me specifically, correspondence from the city magazine, from James Beard nominations, from the event clients, almost all of it addressed to me. I forwarded the files to Patricia the same afternoon. Then I made a different call. I called Marcus, not to ask about Vera, not to gather information. I told him what the new project was. I told him what the position paid. I told him he would be my second in command and that I'd need him from day one. He went quiet for a second. Then he said, "Tell me when." I told him opening was 14 months out. He said, "I'll give notice next week." I now had my kitchen. Part 9, the build. 14 months is a long time to build a kitchen and a short time to build a restaurant. I was at the Garrison space every morning by 7. Some days I stayed until 10 at night walking the construction with the contractor, making decisions about counter heights and refrigeration placement and the specific way the pass would connect to the dining room. These decisions look small from the outside and are not small. They determine the efficiency of every service for the life of the restaurant. They determine whether the kitchen is a place people want to work or a place they endure. I wanted a kitchen people wanted to work in. Marcus came on board in December. We spent 3 weeks on the menu before I let us finalize anything going through the sourcing network, most of which I had taken with me, because those relationships were mine in identifying what we could anchor the program around. I wanted to build something that was clearly a step forward from Cassidy's, not a repudiation of it. Because Cassidy's had been good and I had built it and I was not ashamed of it. A step forward, something that showed the direction the cooking had always been heading. The duck press was coming with me. The farms were coming with me. The sourcing philosophy and the chef's counter concept and the specific hospitality register that I had developed over 7 years of cooking for people who wanted to be surprised, all of it was coming. What was not coming was the arrangement. The system where I cooked and someone else ran the marriage and the two things were supposed to be sustainable. That arrangement was over. Priya, my former front of house manager from Cassidy's, called me in January to say she was leaving. I had not reached out to her because I did not want to create complications for Vera and because Priya's situation at Cassidy's was not my problem anymore. She called me. She said the energy at the restaurant had changed and she was ready for something new. I told her what I was building and what the GM position paid. She started in February. My sister Jess came down from Chicago in March to see the space. She walked through the shell of the dining room with me, concrete floors, bare studs, plastic sheeting over the window openings, and asked me how I was doing. "I'm building something." I said, "I know," she said, "but how are you doing?" I thought about how to answer that honestly. Outside, the Gulch was doing its afternoon thing, the specific energy of a neighborhood that has converted itself from one thing into another and is in the process of becoming what it was always going to be. "I'm okay," I said. "I think the thing I'm most surprised by is that I don't miss the restaurant. Cassidy's. I thought I would. But I think what I miss is the version of it from year 1 and 2 before everything got complicated. That version is gone. This version is being built." Jess looked at the empty dining room. "The space is right," she said. She was right. The space was right. Yeah. Part 10. What the Callaway situation actually was. I want to tell you what I eventually pieced together about Callum Shore and Vera, because I think accuracy matters, and because the full picture is different from the version I had in November. The affair had been going on since July. This I confirmed through means that were accurate if not elegant, a combination of what I had seen, what Marcus knew without being asked about it directly, and what Vera's behavior patterns documented without the need for interpretation. What I did not know, and what I found out in March from a source I am not going to identify, was the fuller picture of Callum's intentions. Callum Shore had been interested in Cassidy's as an acquisition for most of the year. Not just the physical restaurant, the concept, the brand, the reputation. He had been in preliminary conversations with Cassidy's ownership group. I did not own the property. I had leased it with a 5-year option about a potential purchase of the lease and the operating assets. He wanted the restaurant, including the kitchen reputation it represented. What he wanted from Vera was the inside position, someone who could tell him what the operation actually looked like from the floor, what the partnership structure was, what my intentions were, what my contracts said. Not because he was ruthless, although I think he was, but because that's how he operated. He gathered intelligence through proximity, and proximity to Vera was easy to cultivate. He had never, as far as I could determine, had any intention of continuing the relationship once the acquisition path closed. When I left Cassidy's and the acquisition became a different calculation, a restaurant without its foundational chef in a market that understood the food was the thing the deal fell through. Callum lost interest in the restaurant and consequently in its general manager. Vera ended up running a floor without a kitchen to match it. I thought about this for a while when I found out about what it must have been like to understand that you had been used as an instrument, that the thing you had risked your marriage for had been a strategic position rather than a genuine connection. About the specific loneliness of finding out that someone found you useful rather than essential. I didn't feel satisfaction about this. I want to be clear about that. What I felt was something closer to sadness, not for what I had lost, but for what she had found and lost in sequence. 7 years is a long time to spend with someone. Even when the ending is what it was, you carry the before. I put it down and went back to work. Part 11, the call. Vera called on a Thursday evening in April, about 5 months after the filing. I was in the parking lot of the Garrison Space and of a long day contractor. Dust on my jacket, reviewing the lighting specs for the dining room with Marcus before he drove home. I saw her name on the screen and picked up. Because I had decided that letting things sit unanswered was the old version of me, and I was not going back to it. She said she wasn't calling about the divorce. She said something had come up at Cassidy's. I waited. She said the ownership group had brought in an outside consultant to review the restaurant's performance over the past 2 quarters. She said the numbers were down significantly. She said 3 of the chef's counter regulars had already moved their standing reservations to a new place across town. She said there were questions about whether the current program was sustainable. Then she paused. They're asking about you, she said. The ownership group. They want to know if there's any possibility of a conversation about coming back. I let that sit in the air for a moment. 8 months ago, I would have felt something about that. Relief, maybe. Or the specific satisfaction of being proven necessary. But standing in the parking lot of my own restaurant, my name not yet on the sign, but the sign already ordered, the kitchen already staffed, the opening 14 days out, I felt nothing that resembled relief. What I felt was accurate. Tell them no, I said. Silence. Longer than I expected. Then she said something I hadn't anticipated. I know I don't have any right to ask this. Her voice had a quality I hadn't heard in a long time. Not managed, not controlled, just quiet. But are you okay? I looked at the building in front of me. The windows were dark, but the interior demo was complete. The kitchen was installed. The walk-in was running. The hood passed inspection. 2 days ago, my name was going on the sign next week. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. I meant it. That was the thing I actually meant it. Good night, Vera. I hung up and stood in the parking lot in the cold for a minute. Then I went inside and finished the evening prep list. Part 12, opening night. Opening night was a Tuesday in March. 46 seats. Full reservation list, a wait list of 14 that Priya managed with the specific focused calm of someone who has handled difficult situations and has found this one to be well within her capacity. We did 2 full turns and sent out 112 covers without a single ticket coming back wrong. I didn't leave the kitchen once, not because I was hiding, because that's where I belong and I know it now in a way I didn't fully know before. The kitchen was always the thing. The marriage, the arrangement, the years of adjusting and absorbing and telling myself, okay, when I meant something different, all of that was built around the kitchen, not the other way around. The City magazine sent someone the first week. I found out afterward from Priya, who had recognized the critic from a previous visit to Cassidy's and had done what good front of house managers do, which is behave exactly the same as you would with anyone else. The review ran 11 days later. 4 stars. They mentioned the duck press. They mentioned 2 other dishes by name. They mentioned the chef's counter, which was now 10 seats and had already been fully booked for the next 2 months since we announced it. They used my name in the headline. I printed it out, put it in the folder with the supplier contracts and the attorney correspondence and the documentation from Cassidy's that had supported the legal outcome. Not on the cooler door this time. Marcus framed his own copy and hung it at the dish station without telling me. I noticed it 3 days later on a Wednesday morning and didn't say anything. Just started the stock. The divorce finalized on a Thursday. My attorney called at 2:22 in the afternoon while I was mid-service. I said thank you, put the phone in my pocket, and called the next ticket. The asset argument hadn't held. The goodwill of Cassidy's was ruled inseparable from my professional identity and creative contribution. The evidence I had provided, the supplier contracts, the recipe files, the press, the correspondence had documented what was already true. The restaurant's reputation was the food, and the food was mine. Vera received her share of the joint accounts and the proceeds from the house sale, which was fair. I kept my name and what my name was worth, which was also fair. I heard through Marcus that Callum stopped coming into Cassidy's in February. No explanation, just gone. The acquisition conversation never happened. Vera was still there, still managing the floor, same title she'd held when I was cooking 20 feet away from her. I don't think about her much. That's not something I'm proud of, or trying to perform. It's just how it is. Some mornings I stand at the pass when the kitchen is coming online for service, the specific hour when everything is cold and organized and about to become something, and I think about the 7 years and what they contained before they contained what they contained. There was good in those years, real good. The version of us from year 2, when we were both building something we believed in together, that version was genuine. That version ended before everything else ended. I couldn't have told you when exactly. But when I saw her face in the kitchen doorway in August, the calculation, not the guilt, I understood that whatever I was protecting had already been gone for a while. I was protecting an idea of what we were. It's a hard thing to put down an idea you've been carrying for 7 years. But you can put it down. You can put it down and walk back to the kitchen and fire the next ticket. That's what I did. Part 13, my name on the sign. The sign went up on a Thursday morning. Simple lettering, white on black. Restaurant name, then below it, Executive Chef Adam Reeves. I drove past it that first morning on the way to the farmer's market. I still go to the market every Saturday and most Thursdays because the sourcing relationships are the foundation of everything and I never want to let them become someone else's job. I slowed down at the corner to read it. Then I pulled through the parking lot, went in through the back, and started prep. Marcus was already there. He'd beaten me in by 20 minutes, which is something he's been doing since the second week, and which I have not commented on because it doesn't require comment. Some things you simply note and appreciate. Sign looks good, he said from behind the prep table. Yeah, I said. They got the font right. They did. He handed me a coffee and we went back to work. This is what it looks like when something is right. Not the headline, not the 4 stars, not the wait list. The moment when you come in through the back door of a kitchen you built and your second in command hands you a coffee and you go back to work together. The specific ordinary truth of a morning that belongs to you. I've been thinking about what it cost to get here. Not in the dramatic sense, not what the betrayal cost, or what the legal process cost, or what the years of misreading things cost. Those are real costs, and I'm not dismissing them. But what I mean is the interior cost, what it takes to carry something for 6 months without saying it, and then to say it once and put it down, and then to spend the next year building something that requires the full version of yourself to be present. The full version of myself had been reserved for the kitchen for 7 years. Everything outside the kitchen had been receiving the managed version, the okay version, the good version, the version that absorbed and adjusted and told itself it would be different next month. The full version of myself is what built this kitchen. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Not the divorce, not Callum Shore and what he wanted from Vera, and what he was willing to do to get it. Not the asset argument and whether the goodwill was mine or ours or both. The court answered that one. The thing I keep coming back to is what do you build when you stop managing and start building? For real, I'm building it. I'm still building it. Opening night was Tuesday. The week after that was Tuesday. And the Tuesday after that. The kitchen is open. The food is right. My name is on the sign. That's the inventory. That's the whole of it. That's enough and more than enough in the beginning of everything that comes next. Begin. The end. Cast of characters, Adam Reeves, Executive Chef, Garrison Hotel Group Flagship. Built Cassidy's from nothing, left it to something. Has opinions about hood placement that the contractor has learned to take seriously. Drinks coffee before service water during nothing after. Vera General Manager. Cassidy's still. 7 years on mortgage, a sourcing philosophy she will never fully understand. Managed the floor well. Managed the geometry poorly. Asked at the end if Adam was okay. That part was genuine. Callum Shore 7. Food and beverage operations, 2 cities. Wore a watch you noticed. Wanted Cassidy's as an acquisition. Used proximity for intelligence. Stopped coming in February, no explanation. Marcus Seuss, chef now, Executive Seuss, beats Adam in by 20 minutes. Frames things without saying he framed them. Handed Adam a coffee on the morning the sign went up. No further explanation needed. Priya General Manager, Garrison Flagship, left Cassidy's on her own initiative, called Adam, manages the waitlist with specific focused calm. The dining room works because Priya is in it. Patricia Holland's attorney, 12th Avenue. Unhurried. Asked practical questions, got the goodwill ruling right. Jess Adams' sister, Chicago. Came to see the space, asked how he was doing, listened, right about the space. The duck press still pressing, still worth the trip. Part 14, what the years contained. I want to give you the before because the before is real and it matters. Vera and I met at a fundraiser dinner for a local food bank. I was the volunteer chef that evening, cooking for 200 people in a church fellowship hall with equipment I had borrowed from 3 different restaurants and a crew of culinary school students who were game but inexperienced. It was the kind of cooking situation that either breaks you or teaches you something essential about resource management and calm under constraint. It taught me things. She was there as a representative of the hotel group she worked for, which had sponsored the event. She came into the kitchen at some point during the service to ask if we needed anything, and I told her we needed more sheet pans. And she found 6 sheet pans in the church's basement within 10 minutes, which impressed me more than it should have, because in a kitchen situation, a person who solved the specific problem rather than asking what would help you is a fundamentally different kind of person than the alternative. We talked afterwards. She was direct, curious, genuinely interested in the logistics of what I'd just done rather than performing interest in it. We exchanged numbers. I called the next day, which is not something I usually do but seemed necessary. The first 2 years were good. I want to say that plainly. They were genuinely good, the kind that comes from 2 people who are both building something and both committed to the building and both honest at that point about what they were building toward. We agreed on most of the big things and disagreed about most of the small things and negotiated the disagreements with the specific mutual respect of people who know the other person is also right. When we decided to open Cassidy's, it was a mutual decision in the truest sense. She left a stable job with benefits. I left a sous chef position at a respected restaurant where I was due for a promotion I had already been offered. We both put our professional identities into it. We both signed the lease. We both spent the first 8 months alternating between genuine terror and something that felt like exactly the right kind of hard. The first year was hard in the right way. The second year was the year Cassidy's found its footing and the year our marriage found a rhythm that worked. Those 2 years are the ones I carry forward as evidence that what we had was real. Not the ending, not the middle years when things were managed rather than felt, but those 2 years. I carry them because accuracy matters to me. And accuracy requires holding the good alongside the bad, without letting one cancel the other. The good was real. The bad was also real. Both of those things are true, and carrying both is the honest version. Part 15, what I learned in the kitchen during those 6 months. There are things you understand about yourself in a kitchen under pressure that you don't understand anywhere else. In the 6 months between August and the Tuesday text, I was cooking with the specific intensity of someone who is channeling something that has nowhere else to go. If you've worked in a professional kitchen, you know this intensity, it's productive, it produces good plates. It is not sustainable indefinitely, and I knew that, but for 6 months, it was what I had. What I learned specifically, I had been managing my marriage the way I managed a difficult service by keeping my head down, keeping the output high, and hoping that the quality of the work would address whatever was wrong with the system. This is the right approach in a kitchen. In a kitchen, the quality of the food speaks. In a marriage, the quality of the food speaks only to itself. I had been giving Vera the version of me that came out of the kitchen, tired, precise, focused on the next thing. I had not been giving her the version that existed before the service started, when I was at the market at 7 in the morning, building relationships with people who grew food, or the version that read cookbooks at the kitchen table on Sunday mornings before the city was fully awake. I had been withholding the version of myself that was actually interesting, not because I was strategizing about it, but because I was tired, and the kitchen took everything, and I had stopped asking whether that was the right allocation. I'm not saying this to assign blame to myself. The affair was her choice, and it was wrong, and the specific nature of Callum's involvement makes it considerably worse than a simple mistake. But if I'm being accurate about all of it, I contributed to the distance. Not with cruelty, not with intention. With the specific default of a person who is giving their best self to their work and assuming the rest of their life would tolerate the remainder. It didn't tolerate it. I understand that now. At the new restaurant, I leave at a reasonable time. On the evenings, I don't have a reason to stay. This is a change. Marcus covers the close on Mondays and Wednesdays. I've been taking Sundays fully off, which I had not done in 6 years of Cassidy's. I go to the market on Saturday mornings and take my time. I have dinner with Jess when she's in town and with my parents when they drive down from Murfreesboro, which they do more often now that they understand what I've built. I'm not saying any of this is perfect. I'm saying it's an improvement. An improvement is the right direction. The kitchen is still the kitchen. The food is still the thing. but I have learned to leave room around it. Part 16, the night before opening. The night before opening, I was in the kitchen alone from 11 until 1 in the morning. Not because anything needed doing. Everything was ready, mise en place, done proteins, portions, stocks made and chilled and labeled, pastry done, bar done, linens pressed, music programmed, Priya's seating plan finalized, Marcus's station layouts confirmed. Everything that could be prepared was prepared. I was there because I wanted one more conversation with the kitchen before anyone else arrived. I know how that sounds. I don't cook it up into something mystical. It's a simple thing. Before a new beginning, you want to sit quietly in the place where the beginning is happening and let it be real for a minute before it becomes the work. I stood at the pass for a while. The kitchen was the right temperature, cool, the refrigeration running, everything where it was supposed to be. The hood was clean. The range was cold and would be hot in 12 hours. The walk-in was organized in the specific way that Marcus and I had established as our system, which was a refinement of the system I'd had at Cassidy's. Which was a refinement of the system I developed as a sous chef going all the way back. The duck press was on its stand near the service window. I had sourced it from the same supplier in Lyon that the original had come from. This one was newer, but still made by the same family operation, the same mechanisms, the same satisfying weight when you set the arm. It was going to do work that people would come back for. I thought about Vera. Not with grief or anger, just honestly the way you think about someone who is significant and is no longer present. I thought about the sheet pans in the church basement. I thought about the Tuesday evening in year 2 when we sat at the bar at Cassidy's after close, and I told her about the sourcing trip I'd just done. The farm outside Leiper's Fork where I'd found the heritage breed pigs, and she had listened to 45 minutes of agricultural detail with genuine interest, asking the right questions, understanding why it mattered. That version of her was real. What happened to that version is a question I stopped asking sometime around February, when I understood that asking the question wasn't going to produce anything I could use. I turned off the kitchen lights at 12:40 and drove home. The next morning I was back at 6, service started at 5:30 p.m., and the first table walked in at 5:37. We were ready. Part 17, what Marcus said on the phone. Marcus called me the night the 4-star review ran. Not to celebrate exactly, that's not his register. He called because he had been thinking about something and wanted to say it, which is the specific reason Marcus calls when he calls. He said, "I want to tell you something." I said, "Go ahead." He said, "I've worked in 8 kitchens. Some of them were good. A couple of them were places I'm proud to have worked in. But this is the first one where I felt like the food had somewhere to go. Like we were building towards something rather than just executing." I thought about this. "I've felt that way since the first week," I said. "I know," he said. "That's why I called. Because I wanted to make sure you knew I felt it too." Asterisk. That was the full conversation. He said goodnight and hung up. I put the phone down and thought about what he described food that is somewhere to go. That is the whole aspiration of what we were doing. Not the 4 stars, not the write-up, not the wait list. The forward direction. The sense that each service was building something rather than just being done. I had not had that feeling at Cassidy's in the last 18 months. I have it here. Every morning when I start the stock, every evening when I stand at the pass, and the first ticket comes in every Saturday at the market when a farmer shows me something that sparks an idea for a dish forward direction. Somewhere to go. That's the thing you build when you stop managing and start building for real. I'm still building. Part 18, the duck press. I want to tell you about the duck press because it's in the story and it means something. The duck press is a 19th century device, French in origin, designed to extract the juices from a partially roasted duck carcass by mechanical compression. You roast the duck, you remove the legs and the breast, and then you put the carcass bones, blood remaining meat, everything into the press and apply force with a large arm mechanism until what runs out the bottom is a concentrated, bloody, intensely savory liquid that you reduce with cognac and butter and the duck liver into a sauce that is unlike anything else. It's theatrical. It requires tableside service. It takes 20 minutes and requires 2 people and makes the whole dining room smell like something extraordinary is happening because something extraordinary is happening. It was the signature dish at Cassidy's. The City magazine mentioned it specifically. It was the dish that people made reservations specifically to have. I put it on the menu at the new restaurant on purpose, not because I needed to prove anything about continuity, because it's a great dish, and it belongs to me the way the recipe belongs to me through development, through refinement, through the years of testing and adjusting, and the specific knowledge of what makes it work. The press is my press. The technique is my technique. The dish is my dish. When the review ran and mentioned the duck press by name and described what it was and what it produced, I read the sentences twice. Then I folded the review and put it in the folder. The dish was on the menu for the first service. It's been on every service since. Some things you carry forward because they're worth carrying. The duck press is worth carrying. Part 19, what Jess said when the review ran. Jess called the day the review ran. She had read it online before I had. She texted first. 4 stars. They used your name in the headline. Call me. I called her from the parking lot after morning prep. She said, "How does it feel?" I said, "Like the first review. Like something you have to read twice to let it land. Is it different from the Cassidy's reviews?" I thought about the 3-star write-up that I had taped to the cooler door at Cassidy's, and the way Vera had looked at it for 3 seconds and said, "That's great, babe." While looking at her phone, I thought about the fact that I had been standing there with something that represented a year of work, and she had been elsewhere in her attention. "It's different," I said. The Cassidy's reviews felt like I was showing someone something. This one feels like I stopped, like what she said. Like it's for me. Jess was quiet for a second. Then she said, "That's the whole thing, isn't it?" It was. That's the whole thing. The work you do when you're trying to show someone who you are, and the work you do when you know who you are, those feel different in the body. They produce different results. The 4-star review is not better because it's 4 stars instead of 3. It's better because I was cooking from the right place when I made the food that earned it. I was cooking for the kitchen. Not for the floor, not for the marriage, not for anyone who needed to be convinced. For the kitchen. That's always been the right place to cook from. Part 20, the morning the sign went up extended. When I drove past the sign that first morning, I slowed the car to reading speed and I read it. My name. The restaurant name. Clean letters on a black ground. Then I pulled through the parking lot, went in through the back, and Marcus handed me a coffee. We worked until 2 without talking much, which is our way. The prep list was long and specific, and we moved through it with the efficiency of people who have been working together long enough that the communication is mostly positional rather than verbal. He was at his station, I was at mine. And the kitchen had the specific alive quality of a place that is in the process of preparing for service. Around noon, Marcus said, "Did you see the comment section on the Instagram post?" "No." "You should look." I looked during the break. The Garrison had posted a photo of the sign. The comment section was a scroll of familiar names, Cassidy's regulars, food writers, industry people, a few faces I recognized from the market, people I had been cooking for, people whose continued engagement with my work was a form of trust that I had been building for 7 years. They were here because of the food. Not the concept, not the space, not the hotel backing, not the PR. Because of the food, and because the food was mine, and because they had been eating it long enough to know where it was going. I put the phone down. I started the stock. Some things don't require commentary. Some things just require you to show up and keep working. I showed up. I kept working. The kitchen is open. The food is right. My name is on the sign. This is what the after looks like when the after is built correctly. This is what it feels like when you stop managing and start building from the right place. The morning prep list, the farmer's market on Saturday, Marcus at his station, Priya at the host stand, the duck press on its stand by the service window, forward direction, somewhere to go, begin. Part 21, the Thursday nights. Some Thursday nights I stand at the pass during the last hour of service when the kitchen gets quiet. Not quiet exactly, the kitchen is never truly quiet during service, but the specific quieter quality of the hour when the last tables are settled and the rush has passed, and what remains is the steady late service pace, a few desserts, some final plates, the systematic wind down of a service that went right. When the kitchen gets to that place, there's a sound to the dining room that you can hear from the past glasses. Low voices, the specific murmur of people who are eating well and not rushing, and are present in the room in the way that good food invites people to be present. I built this room, this version of it anyway. The architecture is the Garrison's. The walls and the floors and the lighting are other people's decisions, good ones. But the room that exists during a service, the temperature of it, the specific way attention is organized around what's happening at the table, the reason people are leaning toward each other rather than away, that's the food. The food creates the room that people want to be in. I built that. I think about the Thursday nights at Cassidy's in the years before everything changed. The chef's counterful, the duck press, doing its work, the 3-month wait list. Those nights were also mine. I built them too. I am not going to revise those nights out of the record because of what came after. They were good. I was doing the work I was supposed to be doing. The marriage was complicated, but the food was not complicated, and the food was what the Thursday nights were made of. What I understand now, standing at the pass on a Thursday night in a kitchen that is fully mine, in a way Cassidy's never could have been, is that the Thursday nights were always going to be the constant. The restaurant changed. The marriage changed. The legal structure changed. The Thursday nights. The specific experience of standing in a working kitchen at the end of a good service, that was always going to be there. I just had to build the right room for it. I did. I'm here. Part 22, what Priya said. Priya came to find me at the end of the second month of service. This was not unusual. She finds me at the end of service sometimes to debrief on floor matters, a practice we established early and that I value, because she sees things I don't see from inside the kitchen. She said, I want to tell you something that isn't about the restaurant. I said, go ahead. She said I left Cassidy's because of the energy, like I told you. But that wasn't the whole reason. The whole reason was that I could see what was happening there, and I didn't think it was right, and I didn't know how to say that to you without stepping into something that wasn't my place. And I want to apologize for not finding a way to say it. I thought about this. You didn't know what I knew, I said, or when I knew it. I knew something was off, she said. The Thursday nights changed. The way she interacted with the guests changed. The whole energy of the floor changed. And you were in the kitchen cooking better than you had in years, and I don't think you knew how good it was getting because you weren't watching from where I was watching. I looked at her. You were cooking like someone who had something to prove and didn't know who to prove it to, she said. And the food was extraordinary for it. But I could see it wasn't sustainable. Not in that room. It wasn't, I said. This room is right, she said. You cook the same way here, but there's somewhere for it to go. That was the phrase again. Somewhere to go. Marcus had said it. Now, Priya, that's what we're building, I said. I know, she said. That's why I'm here. She went back to the front. I went back to the kitchen. Part 23, the supplier call. In February, about 2 months after opening, I received a call from one of the farms I'd been sourcing from since the Cassidy's days. This was the Whitmore operation, 15 miles outside the city, heritage breed pork and some of the best root vegetables in the region. I had been working with them since year 2 at Cassidy's, and they were still with me at the new restaurant, The Farmer. A man named Dale Whitmore called not about an order, but about something else. He said he'd heard from the city magazine about the review. I said yes. He said he was glad and that he'd been following the situation. This is what he said, the situation with this specific farm country diplomacy that acknowledges difficulty without narrating it, and that he was glad things had worked out. I said thank you. He said, I want to tell you something. When that writer came out here to do the piece about your sourcing practices, the one that ran in September the year before all this, she interviewed me. And I told her that the way you've always talked about this farm's product is the way a person talks about something they care about, not as a transaction, as a relationship, and that's rare. You understand what we do here, and it shows up in the food. I didn't say anything for a second. I wanted to make sure you knew someone noticed, he said, not just the stars. The way you cook. I thanked him. We talked about the spring order for another 10 minutes. He had a new heritage breed. He was trialing a Gloucestershire Old Spot cross that he thought might be interesting to work with. I told him to save me the first dozen. After I hung up, I thought about what he'd said. The way you cook. Not the restaurant, not the reputation. The specific way I cook, the care I bring to the ingredient before I bring the ingredient to the stove, the understanding of where it came from and what it is and what it wants to become. That's the thing you build toward. That's the thing that was always there, even in the years when everything around it was complicated. The kitchen is right when the cooking is right. The cooking is right when you're honest about the ingredient. I have always been honest about the ingredient. Part 24, some Tuesday nights. Some Tuesday nights, and I mean specific Tuesday nights, not every Tuesday, but the ones that have the right quality. I stand at the pass in the last hour of service, and I can hear the dining room the way Dale Whitmore can hear his field in the morning before he starts work. I can hear when the room is right, when the food is doing what food does when it's right, which is make people slow down and pay attention to where they are. You hear it as a quality of sound rather than a specific sound, a settling, a decrease in the ratio of talking, to listening to the specific acoustic signature of a room full of people who are present rather than managing their presence. I built this room. I build it again every service. That's the work. That's the specific daily practice of a kitchen that has somewhere to go. In the morning, I come in through the back. I start the stock. Marcus is already there or arriving shortly. Priya has the floor plan ready. The produce is delivered by 8. The meat is portioned by 10. The first ticket comes in at 5:30 in the afternoon. And everything before that is the specific patient work of preparation. I was built for this work. I know that now in a way I didn't fully know it before. The 7 years at Cassidy's taught me what I was built for and also what I had been trying to carry that wasn't mine to carry. Both lessons were necessary. I couldn't have arrived here without both. The text at 9:47 on a Tuesday night was a message sent between the salad course and dessert, like punching out early. The email I sent at 9:53 was a contract I should have signed in September. 8 words in response. Already where you couldn't follow. Take care. She didn't follow. She couldn't. Because where I was going had always been the kitchen, and the kitchen is mine, and what comes out of it is mine, and my name is on the sign. That's the inventory. The stock is on. The pass is clean. The duck press is ready. This is what the after looks like when you build it from the right place. Begin. The very last thing. The City magazine ran a follow-up piece in April, 6 months into the opening. They sent the same writer who had done the 4-star review. She asked me at the end of the interview what I would have done differently. I thought about it for a real minute. Not the polished version. The actual thought. I would have sent the contract in September, I said. She waited to see if there was more. That's it, I said. I should have sent it in September. The rest of it, the year it took to get here, that was the path. But I should have sent the contract in September. She wrote something down. Why didn't you? She asked. I looked at the kitchen. Marcus was at his station running through the prep list. The hood was running. The walk-in was humming. The duck press was on its stand. Because I thought waiting was the same as hoping, I said. And it isn't. Waiting and hoping are different things. Waiting is passive. Hoping requires doing the thing you're hoping toward. She wrote that down too. The piece ran the following week. They used that quote in the second paragraph. I read it once, put the magazine in the folder with everything else. Then I went back to work. That's the whole story. That's the entire inventory. The grill was clean. The stock was right. My name was on the sign. Begin. Part 25, the farmer's market. Saturday mornings I go to the market at 7. This has been my practice since year 1 at Cassidy's, and it continues here, and I intend to continue it for as long as I am cooking professionally, which is to say for as long as I am alive. The market opens at 6, but the good conversations happen at 7 after the early browsers have made their purchases and the vendors have had a chance to settle into the day and are willing to talk about what they actually have rather than what they're required to say. I have relationships with 12 vendors at this market. Some of them go back 6 years. They know my cooking, or they know its effects. They know that when I take their produce, it comes back to them as a review that mentions how good a vegetable was, and that this has been consistent, and that consistency is the foundation of any working relationship. Saturday mornings are when I find the ideas. Not all of them. A lot of the ideation happens in the kitchen and service, in the specific problem solving that comes from what's in front of you. But the Saturday morning conversations, standing at a table, looking at something I didn't expect, asking the farmer about how it's been growing, understanding the character of this particular week's harvest versus last week's. Those are the conversations that produce the dishes that produce the forward direction that Marcus and Priya both described. The dish exists in the conversation between the cook and the ingredient. The conversation starts at the market. I'm going this Saturday. I go every Saturday. That's the whole practice. That's the thing that produces the food, that produces the room, that produces the 4 stars, that produces the continued trust of the people who drive 30 minutes and wait 2 months for the chef's counter. It starts at the market at 7 on a Saturday morning. I'll be there. Part 26, what I would have told myself in August. If I could have told myself something in August, standing in the kitchen doorway, watching Vera at Callum Shore's table, recognizing the calculation on her face, I would have said this: send the contract tonight. Not because the marriage was over. It wasn't over in August. There were still months of it left, and some of those months had the quality of something that might have been different if different choices had been made by different people. But the contract the garrison offered the executive chef position, the kitchen I was supposed to be building that was done waiting for conditions that were not going to arrive. I was waiting for stability before I made the move. The stability was not coming. What was coming was a Tuesday text and a Thursday night discovery and 14 months of building something new. Those months were going to happen regardless. The only variable was when. I should have sent it in September, which is when I first read it all the way through. I sent it in November. Those 2 months are the 2 months I can't get back, not because of the marriage. I'm not counting marital time in terms of what I should have done differently. Because of the kitchen. Because the kitchen I'm standing in now could have been 2 months further along. Because the food could have had 2 more months of development time before the opening. The kitchen was always going to be the answer. I should have trusted that sooner. I trust it now. That's what the story is about underneath everything else. Not the betrayal, which is a real thing, but not the central thing. Not the legal outcome, which was fair. Not Callum Shore, who was what he was, and received his corresponding results. The central thing is, what do you build when you stop waiting for the conditions to be right and start making the conditions right? You build a kitchen. You start the stock, you put your name on the sign, And every morning when you come in through the back, it's there, waiting, ready, right, begin. Part 27, opening night, the specific moment. I want to tell you about one specific moment from opening night because I have been thinking about it since, and it is the right ending to this particular part of the story. It was during the second turn, about 40 minutes into the second seating, maybe 9 o'clock. The kitchen was running at the exact pace I wanted, not frantic, not slow, but the specific pressure of a kitchen that has found its rhythm and is executing at the top of its range. Every station was performing, every ticket was being called correctly. The timing was the timing I had spent 4 months calibrating. I was standing at the pass calling a ticket for the chef's counter, and I heard Marcus behind me say something to the grill cook that I didn't catch fully, but understood to be a calibration. An adjustment, the small correction that a good sous chef makes in real time without stopping service. And the grill cook responded, and the adjustment happened, and the ticket completed correctly. I didn't turn around, but I noted it. And in the noting, I understood something that had been there all along, but that I was finally in the right place to understand the kitchen works because the people in it are trusted to do their work. I trusted Marcus to run the stations the way we designed them. Marcus trusted me to call the pass accurately. The grill cook trusted Marcus's correction. Priya trusted the kitchen to produce what she was going to deliver to the table. The guest trusted the restaurant to have earned the wait. The whole thing runs on trust. Trust in the ingredient, trust in the technique, trust in the people, trust that the work you've done is the right work, and that the work you're doing is pointed in the right direction. At Cassidy's, at some point, I had stopped being fully trusted with the full picture of what was happening. That absence of trust, not in the kitchen, but in the arrangement around the kitchen, was what had been rotting things from the outside in. Here I am fully trusted with the full picture. I built this kitchen with the full information. It runs on the trust that comes from that. The ticket completed. I called the next one. Service continued. The room was right. That was the moment. That was the whole thing. Begin. Postscript, the sign, the stock, the morning. My name is on the sign. Every morning I come in through the back and the sign is there on the street. I can see it from the parking lot at an angle if I look. Some mornings I look. Most mornings I don't need to because I already know it's there and the knowing is enough. I start the stock. Marcus arrives. The produce delivery comes. Priya has the floor plan ready. This is the morning. This is every morning. The grill was not clean at 9:47 on a Tuesday night when the text arrived. I finished cleaning it. I finished the stock reduction. I sent the contract. I typed 8 words and locked the restaurant. That was the old kitchen. This is the new one. The duck press is on its stand. The farmer's market is Saturday. The chef's counter has a 2-month wait. This is the inventory. This is the whole of it. Forward direction, somewhere to go, begin. What the duck press means. People ask about the duck press. They ask at the chef's counter. They ask the servers. They ask in the comment sections of the restaurant's social media posts. They want to know why it's the dish, why it travels from Cassidy's to hear what it means. I'll tell you what it means. It means that some things are worth the effort. The duck press takes 20 minutes at tableside. It requires 2 people and creates theater and demands attention from the room. There is no abbreviated version of it. There is no version that goes faster or requires less or produces approximately the same result. The result is what it is because of the work. Most things worth doing are like that. The restaurant is like that. The sourcing relationships are like that. The trust with Marcus is like that. The 4 stars are like that. You cannot rush them. You cannot find a shortcut. You can only do the work correctly and let the result be what it is. I spent 6 months doing the work correctly while the arrangement around the kitchen was falling apart, and the food in those 6 months was the best I had cooked at Cassidy's because I was channeling something through the cooking that had no other outlet. That food deserved better than what surrounded it. It has better now. The duck press is at the new chef's counter because that's where the duck press belongs. In the best room I can build, in the kitchen I can build honestly. In front of the people who drove across the city to sit there. 20 minutes. Tableside. 2 people. The specific sound of the press working. The sauce reducing with the cognac and the liver and the butter. That's the dish. That's the story. That's the whole inventory. Adam Reeves. Executive Chef, Nashville, Tennessee. The Garrison Hotel Group flagship in the Gulch. Opening a Tuesday in March. 4 stars. Duck press. My name on the sign. The grill was not clean at 9:47 and I kept scrubbing until it was. That's the whole thing. That is enough. Begin. Always begin. The stock is on. One more thing. Eddie, My prep cook from Cassidy's, the one who mentioned Vera was there until midnight. The one who accepted the job offer in 20 minutes he works at the new restaurant. He is not my prep cook anymore. He is the lead morning cook, which is a promotion reflecting 2 years of watching him absorb every technique I put in front of him and make it his. He frames things. He hangs them at the dish station without announcement. There is currently a magazine clipping, a supplier recognition letter, and a hand-drawn diagram of a plating concept we tested and discarded in month 2, all hung with the same small nails in the same section of wall. Nobody asked him to do this. Nobody needs to ask. The kitchen is his kitchen too, in the way that any kitchen belongs to the people who work in it correctly. It belongs to Marcus and Priya and Dale Whitmore and the farms and the 12 market vendors and the guests at the chef's counter. It belongs to everyone who has trusted the work and done their part of it correctly. I happen to be the one whose name is on the sign. That's the job. I do the job. The stock is on, the prep list is running, and the opening is at 5:30, and we will be ready because we are always ready, because being ready is what we do here. The grill was not clean at 9:47. I made it clean. That is the story. That is the only story worth telling. Begin. Nashville in March has a specific quality of light in the mornings before service, the way the city comes alive, before the kitchens open, before the market, crowds arrive, before the day becomes the day it's going to be. I have been in this city for 11 years. I have been cooking in this city for 11 years. My name is on a sign on a street in the Gulch, and when I drive past it in the morning on the way to the market, I know exactly what it says without having to read it. That knowledge, the specific knowledge of what you've built and where it stands, is the thing you work toward. I have it now. I work every day to deserve it. Begin. The first service at the new restaurant, 112 covers, 2 full turns, 0 tickets back, the pass was clean, the room was right, my name was on the sign, that was Tuesday, Wednesday the stock went on at 6 a.m., Thursday the market order came in, Friday the chef's counter was full, the duck press worked all weekend. That's the inventory. That's the story. Begin.